Hello and welcome to a very special program, Bringing Peace to the Middle East, featuring the incredible Loay Alshareef. Thank you to our partners on this program, the Rededication Project, CUNY Alliance for Inclusion, also known as CAFI, and Mothers Against College Antisemitism. Thank you to everyone here for being with us today, and for those viewing this recording, thank you for watching. It's really wonderful to see so many new and familiar faces, so thank you so much for supporting our programs. And I want to just take a moment to thank all of our allies, our amazing allies who don't necessarily identify as Jewish, but they're always there to support us, and they have Jewish neshamas, Jewish souls. Those who put so much on the line to fight for the Jewish people and the state of Israel, often when we are too scared, too silent, or too busy fighting amongst ourselves. Many are with us today and have been supportive of these programs and of our community, and sometimes they feel alone and isolated because of their support of us. So I just want to say thank you to them. My name is Michael Mantel. I'm a psychotherapist and educator, among the many hats that I wear. Today I'm speaking in the capacity of a board member and chair of CAFI's Events and Programming Committee. And so I just want to thank you to our amazing committee. Thank you to everyone again at CAFI. Thank you at MACA for everything to make this happen.
Michael made this happen.
Well, so now to introduce Loay. Loay Alshareef is a peace activist, content creator, and educator based in Abu Dhabi. Born in Saudi Arabia, his views on Jews and Israel transformed during his studies in France, where he lived with a Jewish host family. This experience inspired him to counter antisemitic disinformation and advocate for the Abraham Accords. Since 2012, he has created educational content on language and history and aiming to foster understanding and cooperation between Arabs and Jews. And we are so honored and grateful for you to be here with us today. Thank you. Loay will speak for about 35 minutes, 40 minutes. After that, at the end of our program, we will open it up for Q&A. No matter how incredible these programs are, and thank God they always are, your respectful participation at the end makes it that much more meaningful. Before we begin, I just want to share a short prayer and two quick announcements. May God bless and protect us, the IDF and our soldiers who guard and protect us, Israel and the Jewish people. May God have mercy on all people in distress or captivity, and may He bring our brothers and sisters out from their suffering and bring our final 19 brothers and sisters home from hostage. And may we see lasting peace for our brothers and sisters and allies here in the United States, in Israel, and around the world. And now for two quick announcements. To save the date, on Monday, October 21st at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time via Zoom, please join Mothers Against College Antisemitism and Gesher Campus Care for a timely webinar on raising resilient kids in the current cultural landscape. The program will outline the complexities of being a Jewish student today and the impact anti-Semitism has on the mental health of emerging adults.
Monday's the 20th.
Thank you. Monday, okay, we'll figure that out. Thank you. Discover tools to help your children strengthen their resilience, identity, and emotional well-being. And on Sunday, October 26th, at 10 a.m. Eastern Time via Zoom, please join us for the life and legacy of Yosef Gedalia. This moving tribute to 22-year-old Sergeant First Class Yosef Gedalia, a courageous young man who dedicated his life defending the state of Israel and the Jewish people, fell in battle fighting Hamas terrorists on October 7th. Through his parents, siblings, and widow, we will remember Yosef's life, bravery, and his unwavering faith and selfless love he carried for his nation. The program will be presented in partnership with the Rededication Project and Mothers Against College Antisemitism. We hope that you can come to one or both of those programs. And with all of that, I want to thank you all again for being here today, and welcome Loay Alshareef.
But I just want to say that, first of all, let me just tell you that I will, inshallah, let you leave this podium with hope. That's the most important thing I focus on, giving people hope. And I'm so happy that, alhamdulillah, the war was finally brought to an end. And when I say the war ended, I always say it ended right with the hostages coming back home, and also the suffering of the innocent Palestinians in Gaza is stopped. Because I always say, as someone who is very pro-Israel, someone who is very pro and a proud ally to the Jewish people, our battle was never against the Palestinian people. It was only and solely against Hamas and the radical jihadists and Islamists. And when I say that, trust me, I know that far more better. And I know their ideology far more better than the white Gen Zs in Europe or America who claim that they know them far more better than I. So, I want to say that I want to thank you again for giving me the podium to speak. My opinion is not a popular opinion in the Middle East. We're not allowed to populate our opinions that easy. I represent a growing minority that puts their head above the parapet to speak up for peace with Israel, for peace in the Middle East, and against a radical ideology that many of us swallowed and managed to expunge. And it's not easy, by the way. So, saying this, I want to move to the most important point. Why should we listen to you? I know many of you might say this. Why should we listen to you? Why do you think you're the credible source? I say that I'm the credible source. But why? I'll tell you why. And then we'll move to other updates in the Middle East that will, inshallah, be concluded with giving you hope. So when I speak, I always tell the audience that I am the credible source because I was born and raised in Saudi Arabia to a very nice mixed family, Saudi Egyptian. And by the way, you know how my mother and father got married? My mother was one of the first Saudis who were educated. So when you say this, because women education in Saudi was not that, was banned. So when she got a scholarship, she went to Egypt, to Cairo, and then she met my dad. They got married. And we are the result. So I was born and raised in Saudi. Both of my families are very liberal families, very nice, middle class, not extremists at all. But I went to a public school and a religious school in Saudi Arabia, in Jeddah, my beautiful hometown. And I memorized the Quran at a very young age. And I was indoctrinated with lots of hate. Talking about the late 90s. Lots of hate against Jews and against Christians. That I always tell my Jewish friends, in order to make you feel better, it's Jews first, Christians second. You guys come first, Jews come first, but Christians come second. But that hate, we were told that you were doing it for the sake of God. So we were so sincere in hating. And I do remember that I used to believe that it was a religious duty to hate for the sake of God. So, I'm sorry to say this, but I'll be very frank with you. When September 11 happened, many of us in the Arab world felt indifferent. Felt indifferent because, so what? This is what we're taught. America is the white, imperialist, colonial power, and it's paying the price. And we were convinced with that not only through education, but also through media. I'm a victim of Al Jazeera channel. Al Jazeera channel made me believe that Osama bin Laden was a hero. Of course, I regret these views. I'll be very honest with you. I'm not proud of the person that I was, but I'm so proud of the person that I've become. And I did this through a very interesting journey. So, you're talking to a former radical, memorized the Quran at the age of 17. 114 chapters, that's not easy, by the way. That's not easy at all. In Arabic, in fluent Fusha. And then I had these views until I was 25, 26. I got the opportunity when I was working in Jeddah. I worked in a Saudi-French company. And then I had the opportunity to learn French. If you work in a multinational company in Saudi, and if you learn the language of the company, like the mother language, you get better chances of promotion, being sent on delegation. I was so ambitious, so I said, okay. I was nominated for a program to learn French in Paris, France. It was an exchange program, something called Homestay program. Homestay is a program where they send you to live with a family, to have the full immersion so that you speak the language faster. So I signed up for that time, 2010. I was 27 at that time. And then, when I arrived in Paris in France, I found out, by coincidence, that this school put me with a Jewish family. So let me just tell you how I felt. The moment I entered their house, I didn't know, by the way, France, when they give you the questionnaire about the family, they ask you, pets, no pets, single room, double room, single bathroom, shared bathroom. What kind of questions that is like normal, but nothing about the religion. Nothing about, I thought they'd see someone coming from Jeddah. They will put him with a Tunisian, Moroccan, Muslim family. The moment I entered their house, I saw a big painting of the Star of David. And I was about to scream. I'll tell you why. It's not because I was a bad person, but everything that I learned about Jews came into my mind that moment. I'm talking about curricula that taught us to believe that the protocols of the elders of Zion are true. That Jews have fangs, Jews have tails, Jews are conspiring against Muslims. Jews control the money, Jews control the banks, Jews control the media. Jews would never want to see Muslims thrive in their Middle East. Plus, one of my favorite TV shows was an Egyptian TV show. It was called A Night Without a Horse. By the way, you can search for it on YouTube. A Night Without a Horse. It's a brilliant TV show. It took an actual story but added a flavor to it. So the actual story was, you all know that the English invaded Egypt, right? Of course we know that the English invaded Egypt, but you don't know who was behind that invasion. Damn Zionists. The Zionists were behind the English invasion of Egypt. That was in 2002. It was one of my favorite TV shows because it was really brilliantly directed. I really believed in it. I was like, oh my God, these are the Jews. So imagine just seeing the Star of David and all of this comes to your mind. I wrote an email to the school immediately. I still have the email. I'm not proud of it, by the way. I still have the email asking for a transfer. How dare you put me with a Jewish family? How dare you? It's like, I wrote some other nasty stuff. I'm going to publish the emails. But I just want to tell you that I disconnected myself from that person because I went through a very transformative process. I wrote an email to the school and they said, okay, we'll find you another family, it'll take some time. The Jewish mother, she did a trick that is so known. That is one of the protocols that I would say, a true protocol of the elders of Zion. The Jews feed you so well. So the Jewish family was a Tunisian Yemeni family, and they first lured me in with Jahnoon on Saturday. I was like, okay, you know what, I'm going to give them a chance to see. But the real thing, the real thing that happened in Paris in 2010 was the intellectual discussion that I had with the family. It was not a religious family, traditional, but we had lots of intellectual debate about hate, about God, about Judaism, about Islam. And I was so honest and sincere in my answers. And I believe if you are so honest and sincere in searching for God or searching for the truth, eventually you will find a way. Eventually, if you are so sincere. I had this inner battle between what I was told and what I'm hearing from this Jewish lady and the facts that I'm learning about the Jews. So I had good Loay here on my right shoulder, bad Loay here. The good Loay was telling me, hear what she has to say, inspect more, read more, and the bad Loay, no, she's Jewish, the bad Jews, the bad Jews. The good Loay was saying, well, she's saying things that make sense. No, but the Jews are lying, you don't know what the Jews did to the prophet. So I remember one of the things that we talked about. She said, why do we hate Jews? I told her, because we are instructed to hate Jews for the sake of Allah. She said, so this hate is related to some sort of a context, historical context, or is it like eternal? So it's eternal. O ye who believe, we have a verse in the Quran. O ye who believe, never take Jews and Christians as allies. So again, Jews first and Christians second. So never take, the hate is eternal. She told me, you know what the Torah says about the Egyptians? Ancient Egyptians who enslaved Jews? I said, of course I know, because we also have something similar in the Quran that God told badly about the Egyptians and the pharaohs who enslaved Jews. She said, but do you know that even God himself said in the Torah that I will stretch my hand and I will smite Egypt and I will destroy their firstborn. The moment they left Egypt, you know what God commanded the heathens? He commanded them and said, Lo teta'ef mitzri ki ger hayita be'arzu. You should never abhor an Egyptian because you were foreigners in the land. There is nothing called eternal enmity. Enmity can happen between humans and between races, but it's not eternal. And that was the first slap I received. It was like, that sounds like my God. He doesn't want me to hate forever. I understand in the 7th century, with the Byzantine or the Roman Empire and the Arab tribes and the Abyssinian Christians, you could have some sort of clashes and maybe you can have some sort of hatred emerging from these circumstances, but it's not eternal. We even have some scholars in Islam who reinterpreted a verse that talks about that the fierce enemies of the Muslims are the Jews. In the 11th and 12th century, they said this verse doesn't make sense because the fierce enemies of the Muslims today are King Richard Lionheart and King Philip, the Crusaders, not the Jews. The Jews are paying the price just like we do. The Crusaders are the fierce enemies of the believers, but what they were missing was they are not looking at these verses in their contexts. And they are saying it is literal, and we have to take it in a literal sense. Hate means hate. And I always say, the Bible that I fell in love with so much, it says a slave has to obey his master. By the way, I keep quoting Rachel a lot. She said, that doesn't mean that we have to restore slavery. That was at that time, but humanity moved on. And I believe you shouldn't abandon your faith, but you should leave behind hate. And I always say this, I didn't leave Islam after I returned from France. I just left one thing behind, hate. I said to myself, you know what? I'm going to leave hate behind. I'm not going to hate. Hate for the sake of God is something that I don't believe in anymore. And I started to read more, become more intrigued about Judaism. That was late 2010, early 2011. Read more about Judaism, read more about Israel, read more about different things that are happening in the Middle East. I wasn't very pro-Israel at that time, but I was willing to change. I was willing to say that many things I was indoctrinated with are wrong. You see, this is the kind of audacity that many of us don't have in the Middle East. This is why, in order to expunge hate you were indoctrinated with, you need to have the audacity. And I said, no, hate consumes you. So lots of consuming. And when I returned, I started my media career, 2012. My media career in Saudi Arabia started so bright. I was so beloved by everyone. I started teaching people languages, history. I did TV shows and YouTube shows about the history of Arab civilizations in Saudi Arabia, like the Nabataeans, the Ahyanat, and everyone. And behind the scenes, I was educating myself more about Judaism, about Israel, until 2017, when the first Trump administration decided to move the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. I wrote a tweet, simple tweet, in like a very informative tweet, that Jerusalem, FYI, is not the capital of Israel because President Donald J. Trump said so, but it's because a character that we believe, honor, revere in Islam did so 3,000 years ago, and here are the facts. Who King David was, who the genocides were, and what are the historical and the archaeological proofs that prove this or that. And I wrote about that tweet and I went to sleep. Woke up, a whirlwind. Al Jazeera picked it up. Al Jazeera gave me a title. The head of Arab Zionists wrote a tweet about Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. And I thought he would come to me and say, let's debate, let's talk. But I realized that it was too sensitive to talk about. It was a very sensitive topic. And I said I stated facts. So what? That was the first warning I received, that you are not welcome to do whatever you were doing in the past 5-6 years in Saudi Arabia. This is why I left, by the way. And I left to the UAE when the Abraham Accords were introduced. I became so defendant of the Abraham Accords. I want to tell you one thing. I really have to say this. And I really want you as Americans to know this so well. The Abraham Accords, which are the peace agreements between Israel and 4 Arab states, the UAE, Bahrain, Morocco, and Sudan, are, please note this down, are the greatest achievement in U.S. foreign diplomacy when it comes to the Middle East. The Abraham Accords. And the Abraham Accords wouldn't have happened if it wasn't President Donald J. Trump. President Donald J. Trump, what are your opinion about him? He brought something to our Middle East that really changed minds and hearts. That really made people feel that it's people-to-people peace. It's different from Egypt-Israel peace, which is a cold peace, or Jordan-Israel peace, which is a cold peace. No, it's people-to-people. You start to see people traveling, mingling, you start to see a Jewish community growing. I started to see my cousins from Saudis recording videos, and Loay, I just want to tell you that I'm moving to Dubai, and I'm going to have a Shabbat dinner with an Israeli Jewish family in Dubai. I didn't see that coming. That's because of the Abraham Accords. That's because of the Abraham Accords. And then October 7th happened. In the morning of October 7th, I asked myself a question. I don't want to shock you. Many people in the Arab world were celebrating October 7th. Many people in the Arab world were celebrating October 7th. I asked myself the question, which side are you on? Did you really change? Did you really change the way? You know, when you speak about the Abraham Accords, peace with Israel, the time of prosperity, the time of, not tough time as this time, it's different. But now you'll pay a heavier price. I said I really changed. I didn't change because our chef cooked very good food in Paris. I didn't change because I married a Jewish girl, which is not, but I'm just saying, or I fell in love emotionally with the Jewish people. I changed because I really reconciled my faith with Israel. And I found the commonalities that Muslims and Jews have and how we can build on top of that. I changed because I found the beauty of Israel as a nation that is not 77 years old, but it's 77 years young, 3,000 years old. I changed because I had my moral compass set right when I say that I'm a Muslim who believes, honors, and reveres prophets, kings, and heroes who are Jewish, and then I say I love the Jewish people. There are millions of Muslims who are named after Jewish prophets, kings, and heroes, and they say we hate Jews. Doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense at all to see an Arab kid protesting against Israel and then you ask him, what's your name? My name is Dawood, the Arabic equivalent of David. And what are you chanting for? Chanting for Jerusalem as the capital of Palestine. Habibi, you are named after the king who proclaimed Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. You are named after the very king who said many a times have they afflicted me from my youth. Let Israel now say, many a times have they afflicted me from my youth, yet they have not prevailed against me. Let all those who hate Zion be put to shame and turn back. You are named after that very king who said, glory to the God of Israel, forever and ever, amen and amen. And next to you, what's your name? My name is Isa. And I hate Jews so much. Your name is Isa, which comes from Greek, Isos, which comes from Hebrew and Aramaic, Yeshua, which is also Joshua, by the way. Jesus, whom we as Muslims honor, believe, and love. You know anything about Jesus? You know that he had a dialogue with a Samaritan woman in Sukhar next to Shechem that we call Nablus, and he told that Samaritan woman, you worship God on a mountain that you do not know, while we worship God on a mountain that we know, because salvation comes from the Jews. And you say you hate Jews. Do you have an idea of the person you were named after? He was the, yeah, I know. Listen, I'm a Muslim, I know. He's a prophet and he's a Messiah. You know what the word Messiah means? It's not only the anointed one. By the way, the word Messiah is not only the anointed one. In the deep meaning of the word Mashiach, it means the King of Israel. How could you deny the legitimacy of Israel in calling yourself a true believer and a Muslim? I reconciled all of this with knowledge. This is why I said I'm going to speak up. When I asked myself this question, all of this long answer came into mind. And I said, yes, I changed because of knowledge. And I'm going to speak up. I'm not going to speak up against the Palestinian people. I'm not going to speak up against the Gazans. I don't believe that all Gazans are Hamas. That is not true. There are so many Gazans who are indoctrinated with hate and who are victims of curricula and didn't have the chance to go to France and live with a Jewish family to change. Why would you be cruel, Loay, to speak against the Gazans or the Palestinian people? I'm not going to do that. Because they are not my enemies, they are my fellow Arabs, and they are good people. I'm so sure many of them are, and I'm going to solely speak against the terrorists who made the true genocide on October 7th, Hamas. And I spoke up against Hamas, and I immediately paid the price. I want to tell you one thing. My mom loves what I do so much. She's very supportive, but she's very concerned about my safety. When I travel around the world and speak in Latvia, and an earthquake takes place in Los Angeles, I receive a call from my mom. Are you okay? Mom, it's in Los Angeles and I'm in Riga. Are you okay? Are you good? I said, Mom, I'm good, don't worry. I know that my mom is so worried about my safety, but I know that she really loves what I do. I know it's hard for her, but I said, Mom, I speak out of conviction. I speak because I don't love Israel just because it's Israel. No, I really feel the connection. And I really think it's the right thing to do because I always defend, not any government of Israel, I defend the legitimacy of Israel. I defend the right of Israel to exist because why Israel is there? Because it has always been there. Oh no, Loay, come on, one of my Jordanian friends. Good guy. Good guy, no, Loay, come on, don't tell me Israel has always been there. What are you saying? My grandma is older than Israel. Okay. Amman. He's a good guy. Let's go to the Jordanian Museum in Amman. What do you say? Yeah, sure, let's go. Okay. We went to the Jordanian Museum. There's a nice stela. You know a stela is like a big monument with inscription on it. That stela is called the Mesha stela. Mesha is a king of Moab. Moabites are the modern day Jordanians. And Moab was bragging in that archaeological evidence that he wiped out so many nations. And he said, I am Mesha, the king of Moab, who did this, this, and that. And then he bragged about defeating Umri, the king of Israel. Umri, the king of Israel. This is not the Bible. This is not the Tanakh. This is not King James Version. This is in Phoenician alphabets written in a tablet. The first thing my friend told me, you see, your friend's lost. That's not the point. That's not the point that they lost. The point is the king of Israel. Israel was dead. I'm not so sure if your mom is older than Arbi or older than Mesha. You should never argue with the legitimacy of Israel. You can argue with saying, how can we have a permanent peace with one state, two state? Of course, one state, two state, federation, confederation. Yeah, you can argue about it. But the questioning the legitimacy of Israel is out of the question if you have brains. If you have brains. So, and by the way, when I say this to people, and I say it on my social media, they say, what's the big significance of you speaking about archaeological findings or archaeological facts that support your claim in the legitimacy of Israel or the existence? I say it's very monumental. You want proof? I'll tell you proof. President Bill Clinton, in his book, My Life, and in many of his interviews, he said that Arafat walked away from so many peace agreements because he argued about Jerusalem. And he said, Mr. President, with all due respect, I don't believe the Jews had a temple in Jerusalem. You know, I really wanted to say to Mr. Clinton, I really wish, Mr. Clinton, you told him, Loay Alshareef is willing to take you on a flight, Mr. Arafat. Not to Israel. Not to Israel. You know where? To Rome. You know why Rome? To the Arch of Titus. You know why the Arch of Titus? That's not the Bible. That's not the Tanakh. That's not the King James Version. That's not... The Arch of Titus has the greatest proof that the temple was there. Roman soldiers carrying the menorah.
Yeah.
You know what that tells you? 5 things. Not 1, 2, or 3, 4. 5 things. First of all, it tells you that Jews were there. And they were thriving because the spoils of war. And they were taken into captivity from Judea. And there was a temple, because that menorah came from that temple. And by the way, Mr. Arafat, what other name you call Jerusalem? Bayt al-Maqdis. Bayt al-Maqdis. You know this Arabic word comes from the Hebrew Bayt al-Mikdash, which is the Jewish temple. Hold your laps, please. Hold your laps. This kind of knowledge, or this kind of absence of knowledge, prevented Mr. Arafat signing a deal about, I'm not saying don't let Muslims pray in Jerusalem, but do not stand against, I'm just giving the minimum. Let the Jews pray in their holiest site. Don't call Jews going into Har Habayt like Al Jazeera does. Jews are storming the Temple Mount. And you still have this kind of ignorance among so many people in the Arab world. This is why it's so significant to fight this kind of ignorance with knowledge. So I fought all of this, and I reached all of these facts 15 years ago. So when I change with, not with emotions, with knowledge. So when I spoke up, I want to be very honest with you, 0 regrets. 0 regrets. God closed so many windows. But He opened so many doors. And you know what the doors are? The opportunity to speak, to travel the world, tell the people the truth about how Israel is part of the Middle East and why it's necessary to have a permanent peace between Arabs and Jews, Muslims and Arabs and Israelis, Muslims and Jews. I never would have imagined that I would speak in South Africa, which was a very tough neighborhood to speak, or I would go to the Baltics, or I would go to Italy, or I would tour the US telling people the truth. So that was a window from God, and I praise Him. Yes, you lost so many opportunities, but so many other opportunities were open. And I want to say that again, I have 0 regrets. zero regrets, and I would continue doing what I'm doing. I just want to conclude with one thing. When I always tell people about the Abraham Accords, many say, what did your Abraham Accords do to the Gazans? And I say to them, it's because of the Abraham Accords. The UAE managed to get more than 42% of aid into Gaza, managed to build a field hospital in Gaza. Why? Because you need a high level of coordination with Israel. And no Arab state could have done it better than the UAE. And this is why the Abraham Accords even benefited the people of Gaza, not Hamas. The UAE would never stand Hamas or the radicals, but the Palestinian people. So, I want to say, we really need the support of the United States for a brighter Middle East. And it's for the United States' best interest to have a stable Middle East. And I'll be very honest with you as well. I'm being very honest and clear about my opinions. And I'm really sorry if I bother anyone with this, but I'll be very honest. Without a strong president in the White House, we can't have a real peace in the Middle East. And quite honestly, on behalf of the growing minority that put their heads above the parapet in the Middle East, on behalf of the growing minority of peace activists in the Middle East, we are so grateful that President Trump, may God bless him, is in the White House. Because he wrote the Abraham Accords in 2020, and we suffered a lot in the past 4 years. I'll be very honest with you. We suffered a lot with so many officials. Please, let's work better on the Abraham Accords. And the answer was, yeah, you know, it's a Trump thing. It's a Trump. It's the greatest breakthrough in American foreign diplomacy. So this is why I am optimistic, because we have 3 more years to go. And this year, by the way, it's because of the leadership of President Trump, the hostages were returned. You need a tough president who speaks the language of a tough neighborhood like the Middle East. And I am very hopeful that many countries will join the Abraham Accords. The Abraham Accords will be expanded, and trust me, it's for the benefits not only of us Middle Easterns, but also America. Because a stable Middle East means less troubles. We shouldn't be worrying about more conflicts, more wars. We should be worried about who would build more NVIDIA factories in the Middle East, Saudi Arabia or UAE or Egypt. Who would create more chipsets? Where should we have the next AI big thing in the Middle East, in Gaza? We should focus on that. And for that we need peace in the Middle East. And without a strong American administration and a strong American president, we can't do it. We can't do it. I'm very optimistic about the future. The future is for the Abraham Accords to expand. The future is for the Muslim-Jewish relations to reconcile. And with God's help, inshallah, we will make it happen. Until then, I want to tell you, I'm going to keep fighting for this cause without regrets. And I'm so proud. I told my friends one thing. I know it might cost a higher price. But I want to tell you one thing. Honestly, I personally believe I'm going to die. Of course, all of us are going to die one day. Dying for the cause of bringing Muslims and Jews, Arabs and Israelis closer would make me proud of meeting my Lord, telling him I did my best to bring your children closer. Maybe I failed, but I did my best. Rather than meeting him, I said, I incited lots of hate among your children. Because I believe Abraham would love to look down to us, seeing his children working on their commonalities rather than fighting over their differences. May God bless the Abraham Accords, and inshallah we will have a brighter future in the Middle East with the help of God and then with the help of a strong American administration. Thank you so much.
one thing, because I know you can handle yourself. I want to make sure that we're keeping it respectful. That's the one thing I ask. Thank you.
You can ask whatever question you want. Of course. Sure.
Please share with us your views about the possibility of peace accord between Israel and Iran.
I'm going to repeat the question. Yeah, go ahead.
A peace plan between Israel and Iran.
Israel. So it is so. The question was, tell us more about what you think about the possibility of having peace between Israel and Iran. So with the mullahs, not Iran, with the mullahs, far-fetched. But it's not about Israel or it's not about the Jewish people and the Iranian people or the Persian people. You know who was the first leader who brought the Jews back to Cyrus? It was not, I always say, it was not Balfour. There was a Cyrus Declaration, far older than Cyrus Declaration. And he commanded me to build a house in Jerusalem that is in Judea. These are the words of Cyrus. So, I believe we can bring Iran into the table, this being very practical, by having more peace accords in the region. More peace accords with many of Iran's neighbors will corner Iran and push it to have no other alternative. With the mullahs, it is not so easy, but I do hope that we can do it peacefully. And it will be a real life-changing thing.
First of all, thank you for your candor and your courage. I think for the Jewish people in Israel, this voice of people who are not of Jewish faith are the ones whose voices come out the loudest.
I'm an honorary Jewish. Honorary.
So one observation and a couple of questions. The first observation I wanted to say is the family that brought you in Paris, it's interesting because they brought you in with open arms. They didn't judge you and say, oh my God, I got an Arab, oh my God. They actually were the opposite. So I'm assuming that actually had a huge effect on you, that they were very warm and opening. The other thing is that can you tell us a little bit about the outreach and about the people that you speak to across the world, what the impact is, and especially at home in Saudi Arabia, what the feeling is, and perhaps you could be the ambassador of Saudi Arabia to Israel. That might be a next job for you.
So I have a good relation with the. It's not a secret. I have a good relation with the Saudi royal family and the Saudi government, but they are not so happy with so many things I say online, especially that. But I speak my opinions, and I was against the conference that took place in New York about the recognition of the Palestinian state, and I said it loud and clear. I said, please, if you want to recognize, this is not directed to Saudi Arabia or to Egypt or to the UAE in general. If you want to recognize the Palestinian state, make it conditional. Conditional with the great example of who made it right was the Prime Minister of Singapore. The Prime Minister of Singapore, if you allow me to quote him, he said something very nice since you asked this question. He said, we will recognize the state of Palestine when it has an effective government that accepts Israel's right to exist and categorically renounces terrorism, while the PA administers the occupied West Bank. It does not de facto rule Gaza. Gaza is ruled by Hamas. I said it, please make it conditional that this recognition will be only happening if a government is willing to recognize Israel. And I received not so good phone calls after this one. But I understand. But I just want to say one thing. So my views, I was a hero in Saudi Arabia before I started to speak up. I received 4 national awards. And I have them all on my Instagram. The best educational ID in Saudi Arabia in 2013. The best tourism show in 2018. The best translation in 2019. This is like nationwide. The moment you speak about Israel's right to exist, we don't know you. Who are you? So, but you know, I understand that my views are not welcome because, don't forget, why do I take it easy? I was in their shoes. I used to think like that. So they are not very well received in Saudi. In the UAE, it's mixed. In in the Arab world, I'm not invited to speak because I'm very, how to say this, considered a very pro-Israel, I understand. But South Africa was very, very interesting. South Africa, the buzzword was apartheid. Everywhere you go, apartheid, apartheid. How could you defend Israel as an Arab and it's an apartheid state? But I said, I've been to Israel. And I saw it is a Jewish state, but not exclusive to Jews. I've seen Muslim citizens, Christian citizens. No, but the grandson of Mandela went there and he said it's apartheid. Why should we believe you, not him? So South Africa was challenging. Other places, they were very open. And but we need to have this dialogue. We need to have this dialogue. We need to have this kind of confrontation that is constructive in order to get our points through. I really hope that since the war settled down, since the war ended, many people will settle down and they will start to say we need to hear different opinions. It was so challenging to speak about this, even when the war was still ongoing. But I'm hopeful that things will change. You know why I'm hopeful? Because I've been there. I was on the other side of the river, and I saw how hatred looks like. I saw the abyss of darkness, and I defeated it. So I always say, one day they will know the truth. They are now being very emotionally disturbed with what they see, with the images of the war and everything. But think when things settle down, maybe they will listen. And maybe this is why I always say, maybe this is why God made me go through this kind of journey, so that I would have the empathy of not getting mad, of understanding, and of saying that one day you were also like that, but I made you to change. So this is my answer to you. Okay.
One of the 20 points
De-radicalize.
Gaza,
Yes.
the Palestinians, and to create some interface.
Mm-hmm.
Now there's some 7 million Palestinians, 2-point-something in Gaza, and the rest in the West Bank, who hate Israel and the Jews, both for religious reasons and for what they call the Nakba and whatever. How are we going to do that?
Okay, so she was asking about how can we make de-radicalization work. So I have an answer for that. 2 ways. There is the long term and the short term. The short term, to have it very effective, is to find, hopefully, a Palestinian leadership that is willing to recognize Israel, live side by side with it, and stop teaching people hate. So if you find this leadership, the effect will be top down. It will be faster. The long term is to fix curricula. Curricula now in Saudi Arabia is so good. I couldn't believe what I was reading like 2 years ago, that our Jewish friends, our Jewish cousins do not work on Saturday because God honored the Sabbath on Saturday, and this is why you need to respect it. And I was like, this is not what I was taught in 1996. I don't know why, but it's good. So the long term is curricula. The short term is a leadership. And then we come to initiatives. I have an initiative that I'm working on with so many NGOs. You see what happened to me in Paris? We want to magnify it, creating exchange programs to bring Arabs from Kuwait, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Oman, Israelis from Haifa, Jerusalem, Beersheba, put them in Africa to feed elephants, to do some voluntary work. The idea is to mingle, so that when you go home, I had a Jewish friend who used to feed elephants in Uganda. But many people hate Jews because they haven't met a Jew in their life. The first Jew I met in my life was Rachel, when I was 27. So these kind of initiatives, we are working on it. But my answer for the Palestinians, a leadership, that's first and foremost. It's not there yet, because we have Hamas, And we have the PA that is like many people in the Arab world call Alibaba and the 40 Thieves. So, but I hope that we have an alternative. If we find this leadership, that the change would be top down, and then if we have a curricula, and the UE is an expert. By the way, do you know when the UE started to do lots of curricula changes? After September 11. You know why? Because Sheikh Mohammed, who is now the president, who was the crown prince, he said, why 2 of the perpetrators were from the UAE? So they were 19, 15 from Saudi, 1 from Egypt, 1 from Lebanon, and 2 from the UAE. Sheikh Mohammed at that time said, why 2 from the UAE? Why? Where are they from? What were they indoctrinated with? What? Your Highness, this education. And he decided to make a monumental change in education. Look at the UAE now. The UAE now is in a different place. You have an Abrahamic family house, a Christian, a mosque, a synagogue, and a church. You have Hindu temples. You have it's different. It starts with education.
Thank you so much for your leadership and all that you've done and are doing. And I agree, of course, completely about curricula, but we're sort of in a mirror image inverse situation, I fear, here in the United States, where now our curricula, different public school districts across the country are being infiltrated, literally in some cases. I know in Massachusetts, where I've seen the documents in public from a hearing, with jihadist slogans and propaganda, literally from Hamas or Islamic Jihad. They're literally taking some of their materials and putting them in the school curricula, and also, of course, redoing the map. So there's no Jewish state, and all of the River to the Sea just says Palestine. A lot of that is currently happening. So what do we do about that? And also, how do we re-educate this generation that is in the streets protesting on behalf of jihadist organizations?
What do you do about that? Raise the alarm that you have people who are misusing your literal freedom to destroy your society from within. It is happening in the US. It is happening in, it's not too late for the US. It's too late for London. For Birmingham. Even me as a Muslim, by the way, I feel terrified going to some places that I don't recognize anymore. But in the US, it's not too late. And I believe, I'm a big believer in this administration. I believe this administration is waking up. And many people are waking up on the danger of radical Islamists. And please, there's a difference between a radical Muslim and a spiritual Muslim who prays, fasts, and he has his faith. You know what's the difference I will say? You want to know the real difference? A Muslim, a spiritual Muslim, would pray in a mosque or in his house. A radical Muslim would shut down the Times Square to pray because it's not a prayer, it's a show of power. It's a show of power and it's a show of dominance. So there has to be a wake-up call, and you have to let this come from not only your non-Jewish friends, from your Muslim and Arab friends, because trust me, when we say it makes a bigger difference. And we need to help you, because if you get things out of hand, they will grow here and they will come back to us to strike us back. And this is why the foreign minister of the UAE, he warned the West, and he said there will be a time when you will have extremists because of the lack of decision making for politicians who think they are politically correct. And then you will have extremists far more from Europe than from the Middle East. They will come back home. And the problem, and I said in the European Parliament, many politicians think that they need to be politically correct. And I said, please do not be politically correct, be politically honest. We can take one more question. Michael, one more question. Okay. And then yours.
I remember better. I used to live in Gaza. I used to work as an Israeli expert in Gaza. I used to get my oil change in Mothers. My favorite barbershop was in Tirabah. I used to have a lot of Palestinian friends. And that was like in 1978. We used to go, Israelis used to go in there all the time. And they lived together. I mean, they had their issues, but all in all, people lived together. It was pretty much Saturday, the markets in Gaza was full of Israelis coming to Ashkelon, to support Jews. And then the Hamas movement left. I don't think today the Palestinians that live in Gaza are the same Palestinians that live in Gaza in the 70s. I think that most of the Palestinians live in Gaza now are much younger, and they went through the Hamas school system that usually were financed.
Yes, true.
They were financed by Europeans and by American taxpayers. Since October 11, I was very active on TikTok and other places, trying to tell people my experience. But it's very hard to talk to people, and I always remember the saying that Mark Twain said that more facts don't convince idiots. And it's like you keep talking to them. But the problem that I have is not convincing Christians, it's not convincing Muslims, it's convincing Jews. I find that the support for Israel among Jews in the United States right now. There was a poll by the Washington Post which came out last week. 50% of American Jews do not support what Israel is doing, like they have more insight about like what they know what's supposed to be done and whatever. But they say over here in Stomach Street in their market. They want a Palestinian state, but they don't want it in Scarsdale. They want it over there, with those people live over there. And that is disheartening. Disheartening that the people that like there's any difference between a Jew that lives in Israel and a Jew in the United States. Like we don't even eat the same gefilte fish. It's like different. You know? It's the same people, and there's like mistrust of Jews in the United States. But it's only an American phenomenon because French Jews don't support Israel, Australian Jews support Israel, British Jews support Israel. It's just like the American liberal Jew. And you said Donald Trump a few times. You cannot say Donald Trump among Jews in the United States. It's like you said, I'm going to rape your daughter. It's or they get like hives when you say that. That is the problem. So how do you want me to convince Muslims? But I can't convince the Jews that Mamdani is going to be elected from your payer. You know how many Jews are going to be voting for him? I go to the JCC on the Upper West Side. I hear people talking about voting for him. First, let's fix our house before we fix something else.
So maybe you need to help your non-Jewish friends at fixing the house. So maybe we can help you with that. I want to comment on two things. First of all, it's a war on social media. It's a war of misinformation. We need to speak the language of TikTok, Instagram, because this is the future battlefield. The battlefield of fighting misinformation. And second of all, to the Jews who don't support Israel, I have a word for them, please. And take it from a Middle Eastern who knows the Middle East so well. Maybe now they stand against Israel, but soon they will realize, and this is also directed to everyone who thinks that Israel did the wrong thing in engaging in an ugly war that it didn't ask for, it didn't want, it didn't start. Israel stood as a barrier from monsters who wanted to spread their barbarism in the world. And if Israel was, God forbid, defeated, thank God it wasn't, this kind of plague would invade the US and invade Europe. It is already here, but it would invade it on a larger scale. Israel, I always say, it's not fighting on its behalf. It's fighting on behalf of humanity. The IDF soldier in Gaza who was fighting Hamas was fighting on behalf of those white Gen Zs in America who have a freedom that they don't know how it would look like if they would survive a day under Hamas. So, but maybe we can help you in telling people more about why Israel is, why Israel went into a war that was very hard, and the circumstances Hamas created for Israel to target precisely the operatives of Hamas was impossible. It was an impossible condition, but Israel stood as a barrier. And by the way, you know who gets this? The Arab countries. Even those who publicly condemn Israel. Even those who publicly condemn Israel, they know deep down that Israel is not part of the problem, it's part of the solution. And they know there is a bully in town, and that is not Israel.
We're already thanking Loay. Thank you so much for being here, for sharing your story with us. Thank you everyone for being here with us. Again, we'll send a follow-up email so you can join us for our next upcoming events.
And please follow me on Instagram and X. Share and comment. No, I'm just kidding. Follow is enough. But let's be in touch, and God bless you all. Thank you so much.